As an advocate for affordable Android smartphones, HMD Global has a portion of the Android One market almost cornered at this point. The recently released Nokia 3.4 is another such cheap, accessible Android One powered device, but how does it stack up? Well, let's find out. Thanks for watching 9to5 Google here on YouTube. Remember to thumbs up, hit subscribe, and then tap the bell icon to be among the first to watch our upcoming videos. Okay, so I will instantly say that the polycarbonate build of the Nokia 3.4 is one of the first things that I really liked about the phone. The actual hand feel is much nicer than you would have expected for a cheap device. There is a certain poise for a smartphone with such a low entry cost. The usage of that grippy texture on the rear panel is one that I wholeheartedly support. Being able to grab and clasp at the device without needing a case or for extra grip is really nice, albeit not something everyone is averse to. You can't help but be impressed, and the parallels between the Nokia 3.4 and its sibling the Nokia 1.3 are immediately obvious. HMD Global has done well to maintain a design heritage, but maybe a little work needs to be done on the slightly confusing naming convention to truly separate device series with each iteration. One thing I instantly felt was the lack of flex, wobble or creaking in the body of the Nokia 3.4. This is a solid, well-built smartphone that, although made of cheaper materials, feels no less impressively finished. As someone with relatively large hands, the size is pretty darn on point for me. Yes, I do have to stretch to reach some portions of the display, but the placement of the side volume buttons and that sleep-wake toggle are pretty much perfect. The buttons could do with little work though, as they are a tad mushy and lack any real sort of satisfying click. Other notables here on the package include stereo speakers, a rear capacitive fingerprint scanner and a 3.5mm headphone port, all being more or less par for the course on cheaper Android devices at this early stage of 2021. Having used a number of affordably focused devices in recent months, the Nokia 3.4's 6.39-inch LCD panel is among the nicest, especially at under $150. I can personally deal with the HD Plus 720 by 1560 pixel resolution, as it's fairly sharp and crisp when displaying text and videos. However, the auto brightness is completely broken out of the box. Often when using the phone with the option enabled, it will get so dim that nothing becomes legible even in moderate lighting. It was an instant bugbear during the initial setup process, and is something that I strongly suggest disabling as soon as you're humanly able to do so. That said, the panel itself does get fairly bright, colours seem pretty good across the board, and there is no real off-axis colour shift, and the usage of a hole punch over a dewdrop display notch feels better in terms of everyday usability and aesthetic. I find that it doesn't feel quite as inhibiting or intrusive while feeling somewhat premium. There are certainly better panels on affordable devices out there, but given the pricing of a Nokia 3.4, it is decent enough. I have found most, if not all, of my frustrations with this device though in the performance stakes. At no point does a Nokia 3.4 feel fast in the traditional sense. There are hangs here and there while you wait for apps to load. Double tapping the power button to quick launch into the camera app is not one that I will miss, but once things are running, I wouldn't call the experience outright terrible. It's not often that apps themselves run poorly, it's the intermittent periods of loading, reopening and general interaction. Obviously, a lot of this is limited due to the chipset and low RAM committed to the Nokia 3.4. This is compounded as well by the lack of available storage, as the Nokia 3.4 ships with just 32GB of storage out of the box. You're effectively forced to get a micro SD card, and by doing so you're ensuring that you can at least offload files to external storage and feel less pressure when doing the basics on a smartphone such as this. This is also the very first smartphone I've used for an extended period that utilises the Qualcomm Snapdragon 460 chipset, which is the entry-level chipset in Qualcomm's lineup. I feel it's compounded slightly by the inclusion of just 3GB of RAM, but it is worth noting you can up that to 4GB. Maybe some software tweaks can be made to improve this experience, but it feels like a bridge between an Android Go set of specifications and for an Android One smartphone. This phone is right on the very edge. I have to suggest you do not play any demanding 3D games, as you'll just end up entering a world of slideshows and potential app crashes. I think the daily performance is something you can get used to, but gaming performance is flat out non-existent. Just avoid gaming on a Nokia 3.4. I do though like the feel of Android One as it mimics the Pixel experience, the closest of any ROM out there to do so. To me, this is effectively what stock Android is in 2021 and beyond. Nokia has added just a few of its own app and camera apps, for a total of 3 that I counted. None of these I would consider outright bloat in the traditional sense, but your opinion may differ. It's also worth noting that Nokia 3.4 actually lacks the ability to connect to 5 GHz Wi-Fi networks, which instantly puts it at a disadvantage in certain scenarios. I had to connect to a 2.4 GHz network reserved only for my smart home tech upon first launch, which does mean that connectivity is not consistent here out of the box. If this is a big deal, then you might want to look elsewhere. The circular camera bump at the rear has 3 cameras for you to play around with on a Nokia 3.4. There is a 13 megapixel main sensor, 5 megapixel ultra wide angle lens, and 2 megapixel depth sensor for faking bokeh in portrait mode. Don't be fooled though, this is a very, very mediocre digital camera setup. I have found images to be fairly soft compared to many other similarly spec'd and priced smartphones out there. Aesthetically, I don't mind this look in a dedicated camera with a larger sensor and lenses that can be removed, replaced and tuned in manually. Unfortunately, on a smartphone, this is a big sore point. That said, if a smartphone coming in at $180 lags behind in one area, then you can kind of forgive it being the camera, as it is a valid trade-off. The dynamic range in images though, when you take them, is fairly good. The portrait mode can also do some impressive stuff. Low light proves to be a pain point, as I did have issues actually launching the night mode, but when it does work, it manages to bump up the quality marginally when needed. While some areas feel like they let you down or fall short, the lifespan on the Nokia 3.4 is really hard to fault. If you are looking to carry the same device for multiple days without needing to dive for your charger, then a Nokia 3.4 should be an obvious candidate. Part of that is due to the relatively large 4000 mAh battery, while the HD Plus display and efficient chipset really do help. You'll likely have no problem playing videos all day without any battery anxiety creeping in. 10 watt charge speeds mean that it will take nearly 2 hours to go from 0 to 100% again though. So in essence, while Nokia is pretty much the poster child for affordable Android One smartphones, the Nokia 3.4 feels just perfectly adequate. There isn't enough here really to make you wow or leave you feeling that spending extra is a waste. That probably isn't a major negative, but there are some quite glaring problems among an otherwise okay smartphone. I'm hesitant to recommend the Nokia 3.4 when the Nokia 5.3 exists in the same universe. I'd argue you're better off bumping your budget and grabbing that slightly older smartphone for an overall better experience. The performance is a little too choppy on this device to be a decent alternative, even to some of Nokia's older and now cheaper hardware. With all that said though, let me know what you think of the Nokia 3.4 down in the comments section below. But until next time, this is Damien with 9to5Google saying thanks for watching, and I will speak to you later.